This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, October 27th, 2004, it happened. The Boston Red Sox finally won the World Series. They take down the St. Louis Cardinals in a 4-game sweep. And fans were huge because it was all about the curse of the Bambino. And the Red Sox just not doing anything and all that. The Red Sox were the wild card team in the AL. St. Louis won their division. And it was a huge fight and all of that. So the Red Sox took a giant 3-0 series deficit and made it 4 straight wins to beat the Yankees and go to the World Series as the AL champs, making them get to their first AL pennant since 1986. The Cardinals actually made their first World Series appearance since 1987. So these teams were actually fighting nearly 2-decade-long World Series droughts. It was huge and all of that. You know, Boston and Houston, St. Louis, how they got here. By the way, with the Red Sox World Series win in 2004, and with the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl earlier that year, Boston was the first city to be a Super Bowl and baseball World Series champion in the same year since Pittsburgh in 1979. And for the 3rd straight year, a wild card team won the World Series as Anaheim and Florida did so. I think Houston did, didn't they? Yeah, Houston made it. No, the White Sox took down Houston. Whatever. Next year. Remember, the Red Sox had home field advantage in that World Series. So anyway, let's talk about the 2004 Red Sox. The Red Sox were in the ALCS against the Yankees last year. It was a Game 7 kerfuffle as Grady Little did not pull Pedro in the Aaron Boone game on October 16th, which I talked about this year. That can be forgiven. And maybe Pedro didn't want to come out because he was a gamer. But unfortunately, the Red Sox blew that lead. And then in the 11th inning, Tim Wakefield, who is now recently deceased, actually gave up a knuckleball home run to Aaron Boone. So anyway, Grady Little was fired 2 weeks later, and Terry Francona was made manager. They signed Keith Falk to be a good closer and made a giant trade with the Diamondbacks to get Curt Schilling as a starting pitcher. The Yankees and Red Sox rivalry were huge and all of that. More on that later. But July 31st, the Red Sox made a shocking move in a 3-team trade, trading Nomar Garciaparra to the Cubs. Garciaparra was actually often injured for a few years in the Red Sox, and they traded him. They picked up Orlando Cabrera from the Expos and Doug Mankiewicz from the Cubs in this trade. They won the wild card and got to the postseason. They would face the Anaheim Angels, who won the NL West. And after winning the first 2 games, they went home for Game 3. And in the 7th inning, the Red Sox thought they had it, but Vladdy Guerrero grand slammed them. However, thanks to Big Papi's heroics in the 10th inning, over a home run against K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, the Red Sox were going to the ALCS. Now, personally, I watched that game, and then personally 4 hours later, I went to the hospital because my appendix was ready to burst. Fortunately, though, they caught it. And I was in the hospital for the weekend with appendicitis. Told to go home to my parents' place for a week to recover and then come back to Kitchener. So anyway, that's what happened. And then, ironically enough, the first 3 games of that ALCS against the Yankees won that series, and it was looking good for them. And I was basically not able to watch. Of course, Game 4 happened, Big Papi's home run in the 12th, and Joe Buck's call, "We'll see you later tonight," as the game actually ended at past midnight, and then it was literally the next day, Game 5 had to happen because of the 2-3-2 format. Red Sox walked it off again and went to Yankee Stadium somehow, in some way, thanks to Game 6 and A-Rod's stupid shenanigans costing the Yankees. The Red Sox forced Game 7 and won 10-3, thanks to a grand slam by, I think it was Big Papi. Anyway, it was big. Now St. Louis lost in this is how St. Louis did. People thought the Cardinals were not going to do well in the Central. However, Pujols, Roland, and Edmonds all produced big. They all three hit 30 home runs, 100 RBIs at least. And they looked good. They led the National League of runs scored and allowed the fewest runs of any team in the league. They had 4 starters with 15 wins, and Jason Isringhausen closed out 47 games. Larry Walker was traded from Colorado to St. Louis for insurance. And the Cardinals actually won 105 games and were the best team in baseball. They took on the LA Dodgers and won the series in 4. Then in the NLCS, they took on the Astros, who were the wild card. Houston was huge and all that. As Houston actually won all 3 home games in that NLCS, make it 3-2, which meant that St. Louis had to win both games on home turf to win the series. In the 12th inning, Jim Edmonds walked off for the Cardinals, meaning that we have a Game 7. But Scott Rowland hit a big 2-run home run, and Jim Edmonds made an unbelievable catch. And the Cardinals won the game 5-2 and got to the World Series. It was huge and all that. Everyone built it up because of the Curse of the Bambino. So I'll talk about the Curse of the Bambino before Game 4. Anyway, Game 1 happened. Dropkick Murphys performed Tessie, a song Tessie was a Red Sox rooter song from the 1900s, but Dropkick Murphys, who were from the Boston area, remade Tessie into a kind of kick-ass song. All that. Steven Tyler performed the Star Spangled Banner, and Carl Yastrzemski threw out the first pitch. Kelly Clarkson sang God Bless America. So it was Tim Wakefield, who, as I said, recently deceased, pitched, and would face Woody Williams, who was 2-0 in the playoffs. Boston would score 4 runs off Williams right off the bat as Big Papi went deep for a 3-run shot. Boston was up 7-2 at one point, but unfortunately the Cardinals were rallying. It was 9-9 headed to the bottom of the 8th when unforgettable second baseman, unheralded second baseman, Mark Bellhorn came to the plate and hit a home run off the right field foul pole, aka Pesky's pole, for his 3rd home run in 3 games, and the Red Sox had a 2-run lead. Falk would strike out Roger Cedeno to win the game, and the Red Sox won 11-9. It was the highest scoring Game 1 in World Series history, still to this day, I believe. Larry Walker did pretty well in his World Series debut, 4 for 5. The Red Sox would have an easier time in Game 2 as they won 6-2, thanks to Curt Schilling's great job against Matt Morris. So it was weird how Schilling did all that. But he was treated with antibiotics because of his red sock, pun intended. So anyway, Schilling did pretty well for himself. And the Cardinals were in trouble because Roland, Edmonds, and Reggie Sanders, 3 great hitters, were actually 1 for 22. Boston went into Busch Stadium and won 4-1. Anyway, the Red Sox did their jobs, and won 4-1. Pedro Martinez beat Jeff Suppan, and Pedro did his job and all that. So anyway, Game 4, October 27th. And before we talk about that game, let's talk about the Curse of the Bambino. The Red Sox were big back in 1918. In fact, the Red Sox won 5 of the first 15 World Series, I should say, in history. They were 5-0 in the finals. And Babe Ruth was becoming a big-time hitter and pitcher, for that matter, too. Unfortunately, Babe Ruth and his giant ego didn't last long in Boston as they decided to ship him to the Yankees for $125,000. A huge amount for some people nowadays. And this is like 100 plus years ago. Unfortunately, though, that trade actually worked out against Boston as Boston could not find their rhythm. And the Yankees, who actually were struggling for the first few decades of the 20th century, which people forget that the Yankees were never always this dominant. They were also Rams for a while. Picked up speed with Babe Ruth, and with the ball being lively, he helped the Yankees win so many World Series, it hurts. So anyway, yeah, there were a lot of curses and all that. The giant curses were some of it. 1946, the Red Sox would face the Cardinals in Game 7 of the World Series at Sportsman's Park. And Eno Slaughter was running on a hit and run where Harry the Hat Walker hit a double to short left center. Slaughter ran through a stop sign, but Johnny Pesky double clutched the ball. Like he hesitated. And because of that hesitation, Slaughter did score. But the film footage says it's inconclusive. Pesky was in the bright sunlight and Slaughter was in the shadow. Ted Williams actually could not do well in his World Series, his only World Series. In 1948, the Red Sox were tied for first place and had to go through a one-game playoff against Cleveland in Boston, no less, and somehow they botched it. It would have been a huge series because Boston, it would have been an all-Boston final because the Red Sox would have won the AL pennant, and the NL pennant was won by the Boston Braves. Cleveland won that one-game playoff and won the World Series and have not won a World Series since. Ha ha ha. The Red Sox in 1949 had to go to Yankee Stadium, win one of the last two games to win the pennant, but lost both games to the Yankees, who then went on to their 5 straight World Series. In 1967, the Red Sox were not given much of a chance, and in what they called the Impossible Dream season, they won the AL pennant. Remember, in '67, the wild card wasn't invented yet, or the LCS, so basically you had to win the American League to make the World Series. Simple as that. They would face the Cardinals, and the series went to Game 7. Unfortunately, Bob Gibson was just Bob freaking Gibson, and they easily won 7-2. Bob Gibson even hit a home run in Game 7. The Red Sox had a tough series against the Tigers in 1972. They had a half game lead in the AL East, and Detroit won 2 out of those 3 games to win the AL East and go on to the LCS. The weird thing was that the Red Sox were 85-70, and the Tigers were 86-70. Because of the strike in 1972 that wiped out part of the start of the season, they said they didn't want to reschedule any games. So the Red Sox, if they had a rescheduled game and won that, it would have been 86 in a one-game playoff against the Tigers. 1978, they were up by 14 games on the Yankees. Of course, the Boston Massacre, baseball style, happened, and they blew it. And of course, we all remember Bucky Dent's home run. Hitting a home run was hard enough, but Bucky Dent was not much of a home run hitter. Not then, not now, in a sense. But of course, lost in the shuffle in that game was that, yes, Bucky Dent hit that home run, but that was not the winning run. Reggie Jackson actually hit a home run in the 8th inning, which was the winning margin in the 5-4 game. People forget about that. Of course, we all know about the Bill Buckner thing, Game 6, 1986 World Series. Don't need to go over that. Red Sox kept trying to make the playoffs and all that, but nothing happened. So, Derek Lowe would face Jason Marquis and all that. The Red Sox started as Johnny Damon on a 2-1 count, the first at bat of the game, hit a home run to right field, and Red Sox figured, here we go, the Red Sox are going to sweep 1-0. David Ortiz and Trot Nixon hit RBI doubles to make it 3-0. Marquis went 6 innings. But Derek Lowe was still pretty impressive and all that. So, Derek Lowe went 8 innings, and then Keith Falk came in for the save. Remember, it was a 3-1 game. Pujols hit a single, but Rolen flew out, and then Emmett struck out, and then Pujols got second base because of fielder's indifference. But Edgar Renteria bounced the ground ball, and Joe Buck said, back to Falk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions. It was just amazing what could happen. First title in 86 years for the Red Sox. Unbelievable. In fact, they were the fourth team in history to win without trailing in any of the games. Despite that, Game 1, 11-9 cornucopia, the Cardinals did not have the lead. There were a lot of fans and all that. And Derek Lowe actually ended up being the first pitcher ever to win 3 series clinching games. He was the winner in Game 3 of the LDS against the Angels when Ortiz went deep for the walk-off. He was the starting pitcher in Game 7 of the ALCS against the Yankees, and now he won Game 4 of the World Series. There were a lot of fans out of the field and all that. Manran was named most valuable player, and it could have been Ortiz, but no, it's Ramirez. Unfortunately, though, Pujols, Roller, and Evans, the 3-4-5 hitters for the Cardinals, went 6 for 45 with 1 RBI, and the club combined batted 190. The only exception was Larry Walker, who did well, 357 average of the World Series, and hit both Cardinal home runs. So you can't blame Larry Walker. He was fantastic. So the line score says Boston outscored St. Louis in those 4 games 24-12, or perfectly by a score of 6-3 every time. It was huge. 23 million people watched Game 1, which was the highest World Series in 5 years at that point, and the highest average since '96. Game 4 saw the average high, $25 million. 25 million fans, I should say. A lot of things happened for Boston and all that. Boston was named the Sports Illustrated Sportsmen of the Year, becoming the first team to win that award. Well, the first professional team, the Miracle on Ice team, won it. But yeah, Curt Schilling was happy and all that. And it actually continued a history of Boston beating St. Louis to win championships. The Patriots, of course, took out the greatest show on turf, the Rams, in Super Bowl 36, thanks to Adam Vinatieri's last-second field goal. Boston swept St. Louis in the 1970 Stanley Cup Finals. That was the Bobby Orr goal when he was flying through the air. And the Celtics had a couple of key wins over the St. Louis Hawks for the NBA title way back when St. Louis had an NBA team. Unfortunately, St. Louis would get back at Boston with the Blues beating the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals. For the Red Sox, this ended the curse of the Bambino. And they no longer had to hear 1918 and all that. A lot of things had happened and all that. Johnny Pesky even joined the celebrations and all that. Boston area teams were doing quite well for themselves. The Patriots won a few more Super Bowls in the 2000s. The Celtics were the 2008 NBA champions, and the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011. So anyway, it was just huge and all that. 1.2 million copies of the Boston Globe was sold on the day after the Red Sox win. That was huge. They would be part of the victory parade on deck boats and all that. It was huge and all that. So a lot of parades and all that. Over 3 million people were estimated to have this thing. They got their World Series rings, and in essence, everyone would forgive Bill Buckner, but that wouldn't be till after the '07 World Series and all that. So yeah, it was huge. The Cardinals would be disappointed and all that. But, fortunately for the Cardinals, 2 years later in '06, they got their World Series ring. So, you know, it was not that bad. All that. It was huge for the Red Sox and all that. And let's not forget the famous movie Fever Pitch starring Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore. Because that movie was going to have a melancholy ending with, you know, the two main characters falling in love with each other, even though that the Red Sox would lose the LCS. But fortunately, the story had a twist ending, and yes, Fallon and Barrymore were on the field for the celebrations, but that was because of the movie. And, you know, that was a great movie and all that. and the Red Sox did and all of that. But that was not the end of the Red Sox winning championships. Oh no. In 2007 and 2013, 2018, they've won World Series. So 3 more World Series titles after 04. And the funny thing is, they haven't lost a final. So a couple of interesting stats. Because the Red Sox were undefeated when I was in Kitchener and winless when I had to be on my parents' farm to recover from my appendicitis. But the fact of the matter is this major stat. The Red Sox won 5 titles before 1918, before the curse of the Bambino. And then they lost 4 World Series after that. And now they've won 4 after that. So the Red Sox are 9-4. That's the funny thing. They're a streaking team. They won 5 straight World Series, then lost 4 straight World Series, then won 4 straight. So basically, they have not been able. They've had like a win or loss, win loss, but they only traded it once. Baseball is a funny game. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond Ado.